Hello there. What is going on, everyone? Today we're going to be doing another Armada ship breakdown, and it's going to be of the Rebel Blockade Runner, aka the CR-90, aka the Corellian Corvette. You might also refer to it as the Tantive 4, but it's actually pronounced the Tantive E4, at least the one we see in Episode 4 A New Hope, as well as Rogue One. And that really it always gets me, because I've always called it Tantive 4, and then it happened. But this is a great little workhorse of the Rebel fleets, and is one of the first ships Armada players who choose to play Rebels will have, as that it comes in the starter box and is one of the earliest ships that most players have gotten their hands on. It's a fantastic ship, and we're going to be breaking it down for you, the differences between the two variants, the different titles, and some sample builds in today's video. If you like stuff like this, I invite you to stick around. I cover a lot more about Star Wars Armada, as well as other tabletop games, Star Wars games, as well as just Star Wars topics in general, even things ranging from lightsabers to helmets to reviews. So with all that being said, also we are giving away a lightsaber right now. You just have to be a subscriber and leave a comment on this or one of my videos. It's as simple as that. So let's go ahead and talk about the CR-90. The CR-90 is a small base ship, and it is a very, very fast ship. It's a fast ship, you say? You've never heard of the CR-90? It's the ship that's speed 4 with 2 yaw at the end. No, it is a very, very fast ship, very maneuverable ship, and it only has 4 hull. So it's one of those ships that's going to move around really quick and hopefully dodge enemy fire, but maybe die in the process. And that's one of the things that really has going for it, but also tends to get the job done at a very low price point, considering the cost of a lot of much larger ships tend to be very expensive. The Rebels, oddly enough, you know, even though they're kind of a ragtag bunch, they have so many very, very large ships in this game that that it's really nice to have smaller ships to fit in between the in the blanks. While the Empire, you know, it has Imperial Star Destroyers, it doesn't have as many other large ships as the Rebels. They've just got all these Mon Calamari ships, and you know, you need these smaller ships to kind of fit in. This one works great as an objective hunter. It works great as a harassing ship. It's good to get around behind enemy ships and kind of get out of arcs. And it really wants its evasion to be twofold, both in evasion in where it moves to hopefully not get shot at or hide behind obstacles, but also evasion with its double evade tokens. The CR-90 is a little better in current day Armada than it used to be, because evade tokens have seen a big overhaul in that they are also now usable at close range, plus evade tokens can be discarded during the spend defense token step to basically apply their effect to 1 additional die. If the attacker is a larger ship than the defender. So like they're just a lot better in general. So with the 2 evades and 1 redirect token, it can stay alive for at least a little while. Now they have 2 shields in the front, 2 shields in the sides, and only 1 shield in the rear, so they don't really want to get shot from the rear. But they have a pretty good time of making sure that they can, you know, make sure that they don't get shot in the rear because of that exceptional yaw. They have always on their last yaw, they have 2 clicks, and then you know, a lot of extra maneuverability. This is a ship that doesn't even need to do a navigation command, although certainly a ship like this often likes to have a navigation command because of its, you know, the fact that it can take a support team. A lot of times you want to run these guys with engine techs. One of the first things a lot of players used to do was try to do an engine tech ram build, and where you would just ram over and over again. Of course, you can't quite do that anymore. You can only really ram once with these guys, but they are still pretty nice. You know, 1 command, 1 squadron, 2 engineering for both versions of them. And we'll talk about their differences a little bit more in a second, but let's still with talking about what makes the ship the same. You know, as far as its arc, it is a fairly standard X. It has a slightly larger front arc due to the X kind of being back a little bit more on the cardboard. But yeah, it's still got fairly balanced side and rear arc you know, areas. So it definitely does want to shoot from the front if possible, and usually this ship can line up a double arc fairly consistently with its at least respectable 2 dice in the side. However, one of the weaknesses of, you know, the CR-90A is that 1 red die in the side might not make it if it's obstructed. So let's talk about these two versions. Let's talk about the CR-90B first. This is one of the cheapest ships in the game for the Rebels. It's definitely one of the cheapest ships that has dice in all of its arcs, and only 39 points. It's I think it's one of the best potential ships in the game to consider just running without any upgrades at all, just running it totally naked as is. For that price point, it's incredible. You know, you could fit 10 of these in a list. Well, you wouldn't really be able to because you'd need a commander. So I guess you could fit 9 of these plus a commander in a list and do great things. Although, well, at least do some things, maybe not great things. But it's a great filler. It's a great activation for only 39 points, and it's got respectable dice. You just the problem is you have to get kind of close for the CR-90B. You don't have any long range weaponry. And once you get into medium range, those evades become a little bit less good because they can't just outright cancel a die. They can only force a reroll at medium range. But you do get a lot of blue dice, and you get this is a great option for a blue dice critical type cards. We do have the officer and the support team and the defensive retrofit. We gain the ion cannon slot on this version. So ion cannon slot's going to give you a lot of option, and it has with the 3 blue in the front and the 2 on the sides, a lot of blue dice effects. Since this is an easier ship to double arc with, a lot of blue dice effects can work pretty well on here. So this is that's going to factor into some of the builds that we have. Now, defensive retrofit on the CR-90, either version is questionable. A lot of people don't run defensive retrofits on these guys because there's a very, very, very good chance that they could get one-shotted, and so then your defensive retrofit could end up being a total waste. Which kind of depends. A lot of times I don't recommend putting a defensive retrofit on here, but we'll explore some options for if you do want to. The support team is a great option for this ship because it does often serve a support role. Plus, the support team also has the probably one of the most common cards for the CR-90, which is the engine tech, which gives it extra maneuverability. So if you are playing this for its objective power, its blockade running power, its maneuverability, that's a way to kind of maximize what it does best. And that is certainly a strategy that the fine folks over at Cannot Get Your Ship Out used to talk about throughout all of their articles is try to focus on not necessarily making a ship well-rounded in being in kind of ramping up what it's weak in, but rather on focus on making it better at what it already does really well, because you want to be kind of, in a lot of cases, it's more efficient to be hyper-specialized. So if you want a ship that's going to go fast, make it go even faster. Why go speed 4 when you can go speed 5? And then, of course, the officer slot, which all ships do get. If we want to increase the price from 39 up to 44, so for 5 more points, we're going to get the CR-90A. Now, this is probably the more commonly used ship. This is, this is my CR-90 version of choice. The only real difference we're going to see here is the red dice. So we get 2 red in the front and 1 blue, and a red and a blue on the sides, and 1 red in the rear. And we're going to get a turbo laser upgrade to make use of those red dice. Now, this is the ship that used to always get flown with a turbo laser reroute circuits. You may hear some people use the acronym TRC-90 or TRC-90A. And what that means is the turbo laser reroute circuit. We'll look at a build with that in a little bit. Works very well with this ship. When Armada was new, you used to actually be able to use turbo laser reroute circuits twice. And they had to change it to where it's now only once per activation, so you have to exhaust it. So you used to be able to manufacture a front double red and then a side double red in the same activation. You can't do that anymore, but it's still a really nice option to have to be able to roll dice and guarantee that you're going to get, at least on one of your attacks, a double. Of course, makes for a great ship to target those ships that don't have evades. So it's great for having a couple of these, put points down and slowly pick away and drain shields of that Imperial Star Destroyer that's on the other side of the mat, or big targets that don't have evades. The CR-90 works very well at. But it's also still, like the CR-90B, still a good maneuverable ship. I actually prefer this version for a number of reasons. One of those is I tend to like red dice and red dice shenanigans. They tend to fit my playstyle a little bit more. Plus, you're more safe when you stay at long range and can still roll red dice. You can take advantage of the maximum potential of those evade tokens that you have, as well as being very flexible on where you want to move, where if you want to, dodge this obstacle, I'm still in range. One thing about dodging obstacles and those long distance shots is that if you are trying to fire at somebody at long distance out of the side with only the one red, you won't actually have the shot. So sometimes you'll put something different on a CR-90A, like enhanced armament. Maybe if you just want to be able to guarantee those shots. I know this is common amongst people who run Ackbar fleets that happen to have enough points left over to throw in a little scout ship. This way, that CR-90A will always be able to take advantage of this increased side arc shots. It's an idea. It's not something that always happens, but it is kind of more of a niche way to ensure that an obstruction doesn't completely remove your ability to shoot. Of course, there is a title that's going to also do the same job, so that would only really happen if you're running multiple CR-90s. Now, speaking of titles, let's go ahead and talk about these titles. We've got Jaina's Light at the cheapest point with only 2. Well, tied for cheapest. I'm going to go from left to right here. Well, Jaina's Light is probably the most common. It's certainly one of my favorites. It says you can ignore the effects of overlapping obstacles. Can. So if you overlap, of course, the station, you can be like, on second thought, I do want to take that repair. It also says your attacks cannot be obstructed. This is amazing, and this goes through every type of obstruction, whether it's a defensive retrofit that causes obstructions, or another ship, or an obstacle. This one's always going to get those red dice. It's great on a CR-90A, and it's really, really cheap. It's one of the best titles in the game, because you can always fit it on a CR-90. The only thing that's wrong with it is you can't put it on all your CR-90s. Next up, we have the Tantive 4. I know I said Tantive. Sorry, guys. Radio drama and the audiobooks don't lie. Gotta follow their pronunciations. Except in the case of Star Wars The High Republic, where they change pronunciations. Was it Marcion-Ro, Marcion-Ro, Marcion-Ro? It constantly changes. Anyway, before I get too far off topic, you High Republic fans, you know what I'm talking about. We'll go to the Tantive 4 here. 3 costs, so it's still fairly cheap. It says, before you gain a command token, a friendly ship at distance 1 through 5 may gain that token instead. This is very maybe less common as far as titles go, because it's already kind of replaced by the CommsNet upgrade that your Rebel transports will be able to run. And we'll be talking about those a little bit more in a future upgrade, but this was out before those flotillas existed, and this was one of the first ways to kind of have a support ship that was feeding tokens. Now, I think this is a good title to use if you don't have the points for another ship, or you don't want another activation, or you just want to make sure that, that extra, you want to make sure your support ships still have some pretty good firing power. Then the Tantive 4 can work. Or if you need lots and lots of tokens, then throw one of this on there, because maybe your flotillas with CommsNet aren't enough. Maybe you need even more tokens. Dodonna's Pride. This one is actually a pretty cool one and a really good target for a CR-90B. It is also expensive, though, at 6 points. It has the special blue crit ability, cancel all attack dice to deal 1 face-up damage card to the defender. Cool thing about Dodonna's Pride is that while it is a blue crit, it doesn't exhaust, so you can actually run this on both shots if you're able to roll a blue crit on a side arc and a front arc, which is really, really cool. Also happens to function really, really well with Dodonna as your commander, because now all of a sudden that face-up card you get to look at the top 4, and since it's a special crit, it will bypass the contain. Lastly, we have the Liberator, is the newest title that came in a campaign expansion. The Liberator is a way to make your support CR-90s a little bit more supportish. And in that it gives you the Fleet Command icon in your upgrade bar. But you can't have this if you already have a Fleet Command in your upgrade bar. Now, granted, it would be impossible to already have one in your upgrade bar before equipping this title. However, I think that's just good future-proofing. You cannot spend a command token to resolve the Fleet Command card's effect. So what does that really mean? This means you can put something like Intensify Firepower, or Take Evasive Action, or something like that, or Entrapment Formation. You can take those Fleet Commands, and you can put one on here for a one-time use. Now that makes it, while it seems like it's a cheap title, it actually turns it into a very expensive title that gives you a whole fleet-wide effect. My preferred way to run this is with Intensify Firepower, and the reason we want to do that is because I would like to run that generally with the CR-90A that already has red dice, and we're more likely to already see blank red dice, and in this way it synergizes with itself. And that's one thing that I think the CR-90, like all these titles kind of show you, is that while it can do some damage, it also can be a support ship, and it's nice if you want your support ships to also be in the fight. And that's one of the things that I think that elevates some versions of the CR-90 above the Rebel transport, and that while it can be support, it also has teeth, and it can also fight while doing the supporting. Now, let's look at some builds. So I said we'd look at a turbo laser reroute circuits, and this is certainly one of my go-tos for a CR-90 if you're just putting one in your build. Jaina's Light and a turbo laser reroute circuits is a great way to go. Of course, if you have multiple CR-90As, sometimes you just put turbo laser reroute circuits on them, and sometimes you forego all of those other upgrade slots. And I know in a lot of my ship breakdowns, I'll fill up all the upgrade slots and show you how they can work, but I don't necessarily do that for every single ship, because honestly, most builds shouldn't be using all the upgrades for all of your ships. A lot of times you just want maybe 1 or 2 upgrades on a ship, just enough to kind of give it something that it can do. Sometimes, usually only my flagship, I'll put everything on there. But so this is a little bit more reflective of how a CR-90 may look. It's going to have red dice in every arc, and it has turbo laser reroute circuits to be able to spend and evade to change a die to either a crit or a double hit sign. And since it's got Jaina's Light, even if it only has the left or right side obstructed, it actually won't be an obstructed shot, so you still get that double red. Really, really great for picking off big ships, whittling down those shields. Next up, we have a CR-90B build. This one we're using all the upgrades. Of course, I probably wouldn't always do this, but I do have Dodonna's Pride on here. A lot of times, Dodonna's Pride is enough, is all you need on a CR-90B, because it's already an expensive title. But if we wanted to fill up some of the other upgrades, of course, engine techs. We talked about engine techs before. If you're doing a nav command, it's going to give you an extra speed 1 maneuver afterwards. It gives you great ability to close the gap. And it can work very well on a CR-90B, especially one like Dodonna's Pride that wants to get close enough to double arc, that wants to have the maneuverability and the speed to get close before it dies. You'd hate to have a CR-90B at long range, not have a shot, and get it pummeled by a Star Destroyer Simoon refit with like concentrate fire and all the other stuff, and like have 6-7 red dice spinal armament on it, and Krennic, and it gets the accuracies, and it gets through, and it crushes you. You hate to see that happen. So we want to go a little faster. We want the flexibility that engine techs can give us to make sure that we kind of stay safe until we're ready to move in, get to that medium range, line up that double arc shot, and maybe, if we're lucky, proc Dodonna's twice. Dodonna's twice. We want to proc Dodonna's Pride twice. So the other upgrades on here, I put reinforced blast doors. I think it's one of the options that you could choose for a defensive retrofit. I wouldn't recommend it all the time, but since that's the thing with a CR-90B, they're going to get in a little bit close. They're going to take damage. Usually they're considered disposable though, so if you're going to spend this many points, maybe it's worth repairing some hull. Alternatively, I'll put high capacity ion turbines. Well, maybe not alternatively, I'd say additionally. I'm getting my words all jumbled today. I think I got a blue crit to the tongue. So high capacity ion turbines is going to give you an extra blue die in your side arc. So that gives you 3 and 3. So if this will allow you to really maximize that double arc if you can get it. And I think all of these kind of work well together, although I could easily drop the 2 in the middle, or especially the reinforced blast doors. But if you wanted to run everything on here, go for it. We have another CR-90A with the Liberator on with Intensify Firepower. These are the two that I really, really like. And I think this is a great support ship now that's going to be able to do very good things. Since I already showed you one with turbo laser reroute circuits, I decided I'd put enhanced armament on this version. This way I have an extra red die. So now I have 2 red and 2 red. Since it's not Jaina's Light, I know that if it's obstructed, I'm still getting at least 1 red die at long range, because enhanced armament changes my battery armament value, although not printed battery armament value, but it does change it augments your battery armament value for attacks, so I'd still be able to gather dice, still be able to roll a red dice after that gathering and all of that. I put Lando on here too. While he's normally going to be on something like an MC30, Lando could still work on a potentially high value CR-90. Maybe this is an Ackbar fleet, and maybe I didn't want to run a Pelta. Maybe I wanted to run a CR-90 with enhanced armament to kind of make the most of the Ackbar stuff that the rest of the fleet has going on. And I wanted that Intensify Firepower ready for that one turn where I get the Ackbar slash lined up. right? That one turn where everything comes together, and then I've got my home one right there, and he's got Ackbar on him, and he's got everybody lined up, or maybe the Corvette itself has somebody, you know, lined up double arc shot, you know. But that's the time when when the time is right and you get all the shots lined up, and this is going to be the turn where you're afraid you're going to roll blank red dice. Intensify firepower helps make up for the fact that you don't have a TRC, turbo laser reroute circuits on here, because nothing stinks worse than having turbo laser reroute circuits ready to go, and then you roll, well, I guess I don't need to use it now because I rolled, you know, damage already, and maybe you rolled just enough, or they have evades ready to go. At least with intensify firepower, you're getting to do it on every attack for the whole round, and that's a cool thing. And we want Lando to keep it alive long enough for that to happen. And then for our last build, I put a Tanza V4 build together. This way we can hand over some tokens. We can be a little bit more in the support role. In this case, I did decide to make it very much support. We gave Leia here as our officer. When you of course, that is also thematic since she was on board the Tanza V4. When you reveal a command, you may choose another friendly ship and 1 to 5 and change its top command to your revealed command. This is actually a really good way to run a support ship, especially a one command ship, because now you have some built-in resistance against other dial changing shenanigans. There's not a lot of it, but there is things like slicer tools. There are things like boarding parties that can change dials. So she's good defense against that, or lets you correct against a mistake. You also have projection experts, a great support option. This is not the best platform to run it since your engineering value is only 2. But if you couple that with redundant shields, this is one of the few times I think redundant shields actually could work. Of course, this becomes very expensive, but still, this could totally work. And then we gave it the blue crit overload pulse to potentially, if this happens to be one of our first ships to fire, if you get it off first in the round, you can potentially drain some defense tokens of other enemy ships and then really make them suffer. So I think Overload Pulse is good for a CR-90B, and I might consider running a CR-90B with only Overload Pulse. But if I want to fill out everything and make it kind of support, here's some support options for you for a CR-90B. And that's going to kind of do it for my breakdown. I'm curious to hear from you guys. How have you run the CR-90? Do you agree or disagree with any of the choices that I've laid out for some build ideas? And what are some of your thoughts and favorite memories of flying CR-90s? Or maybe you're brand new to the game and you haven't tried yet. I'd like to encourage you to check out some of the links we have down in the description below. We have a great family-friendly Discord. I'd love to have you join, ask questions, talk about your experiences with Star Wars Armada or X-Wing or Legion or Marvel Crisis Protocol or Games Workshop games or board gaming in general or just Star Wars in general. It's a great place to be. I'd love to have you. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Also, big thanks to my patrons. You guys are absolutely amazing and help make this channel possible. So thank you for continuing to support this channel. You guys rock. Don't forget, may the Force be with you.